Hello and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight we are joined by MF Moody.
Hello. Why, thank you. Thank
Welcome
you
to
very much.
the You're welcome. Welcome to the room. How are you this evening?
Okay. It's actually quite funny because it's just after midnight here because I'm in the UK. And no, I'm
Yeah.
not English. I'm Australian, but I live in the UK. And the 23rd was actually my 15th wedding anniversary, and my husband and I have spent it the entire time apart from each other. He had a work thing,
Aw.
and it's all right. We'll do something this weekend. We've been
Oh
together for
man.
15 years, so
Well,
yeah,
congratulations. Happy anniversary.
thank you.
Um, I I've been married. Wait a minute. I gotta stop and think about this. My husband gets on me all the time, and I always I know it's in the summer that we got married, and I know it's one of the J months. It's either June or July.
It could be January. It could be January. That's a J
No,
month.
I know it's hot when we got married, so I know it's June or
Well,
July.
will you that they never go to the southern hemisphere because January is like one of the hottest months of the year.
My husband actually is in the room. It's Mr. Deerheart here. He
Hello,
says
Mr.
it's
Deerheart.
July. She says, "Hello, Jeff." Um, it's July. He says it's July 21st, 1992. That really dates me. I've already said I'm old. If you were here for the intro, you already heard how old I am, guys. But it's
That's
always brought up.
that's okay. I was actually in high school in 1992, so
Oh.
I am younger than you, but I'm also Gen X. So I'm
Okay. Well, you
fast.
aren't that far behind me. I see. I graduated in 91. I just got married in 92. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you're not that far behind me. Well, unless you're talking about junior high, then we got
No. Australian high school, year 7. So basically 12 going to 13. So yes.
Okay. All right, cool beans. Okay, so I like to do research on every person I have on the show.
Hmm.
And I think the most thing oh wait a minute. I see a comment. Nadine says, I hope that's Nadine. Nadine, Nadn. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Forgive me if I'm not. He or she says, no matter age, you are a great person. Oh, well, you're very sweet. Thank you very much. I have my moments. I'm telling you, I'm on hormones now, so it's a lot better than it was.
I always say you're only as old as you feel. I have
Mm.
my boy child is currently 11. So if I want to feel like I'm 11, I'll say, come over here and give him a hug. And there, I'm 11. So yeah, it's basically you're only as old as you feel. So go and feel someone who's younger than you.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. I can
I'm trying to be nice and not say feel up. Just feel like touch,
Right.
hug them, hold their hand.
Oh, Mr. Deerheart says cougar.
Actually, I am older than my husband.
Oh,
Only like 4
man.
months. Only by like
Mm.
4 months, but those 4 months of the year, I lord it. I'm like, obey your elders, excuse me very much.
I always tell everybody my husband's like a year older, but he's technically 10 or 11 months. See, yeah. He's February and mine's December. So, yeah, 10
Oh, I'm
months.
another December baby too.
Oh, are you?
Yep.
All right. See, I knew I liked you. So, out of all the research that I did on you, I think the top question that I have to start off the interview is um the best thing that I found. I mean, there's a lot of great information in your interviews and your content. But one of the things I really wanted to know was about the skits that you and your sisters used to do when you were younger.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Um. Okay, so one of the ones I really do remember because my mum had this old. So, just to go back even further, my dad was in the Australian Army, so we moved around a lot.
Mhm.
So, my eldest sister is about she was born. Yeah, she's about 4.5 years older than me. Next eldest sister is exactly 1 year, 11 months, and 1 day older than me, and then there's me. And so three girls.
Mm.
And so we
Wait,
moved
wait,
around a
wait.
lot.
You're the youngest of three?
I'm the youngest out of three, and yes, I am the one who has given my parents pretty much all of their grey hair. Um,
I'm the
but
youngest of 3 as well.
I mean, my mum was she's the second out of 8 children, so we had a lot of cousins on
Mm,
mum's side. Um, but because we moved around a lot, my sisters and I basically we were together. We were our first best friends. Saying that, one of my middle sister and I, we have a love hate relationship. We love each other. We cannot live with each other. We would literally get into fist fights. Um,
mm,
but when I was younger, I mean, she broke the legs of my Ken doll.
mm.
When I was like 8, I had a Ken doll, and she broke his legs. So yeah, because she was playing with him and she shouldn't have been, and that's another story. But anyway, one of the things that we would do is, Mum had this old tape recorder, and because we would be amusing ourselves, because like, yes, we had a TV. We weren't allowed to watch a lot of TV. We had board games, we had books, we had a cubby house and dolls and things like that. And as we would get older, we would like do little funny skits. And so we'd make up songs and sing songs together, and I mean, days of our lives, the whole, oh yes, oh I love you, and we do things like that. And there was one time we made up a song that was called "Lips on Magazines," and it's just something that stuck in. I don't remember all of it, but it was like "Lips on Magazines." It's the funniest thing you'll ever see. Lips on Magazine, and that's all I remember of this song. But we would do these little skits because we would listen to records. We had like Alvin and the Chipmunks,
Mm.
and like some of those older records where they would do sketch comedy and stand up and things like that. So we would listen to that, and geez, I sound like we're really, really old. I sound like we're, oh yes, back in the 1990s kind of thing. It's like, no. But this, yeah, it's because we moved around a lot, and um, sometimes it was really hard to make friends, and
Mm.
yeah, so we made our own, like kind of games and everything.
Right.
So
Actually, I can relate to a lot of that. In fact, my mother lives across the pool from my she shed. She has her own apartment over there, and I just went over to the house I grew up in, and I got the record player, and I was telling my husband, I'm like, "Yeah, we used to put on these little skits." This is why I was interested to know about your skits, because we used to do the records, the old records. Let's see, the Osmonds, Donnie and Marie, and there was a few others. I always got stuck singing the boy part, but my sister always got the girls, and we would put on these little shows of us singing the words to these old records. So
one,
yeah, I go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, in Australia, there was, especially during the 80s, there was a TV show called Perfect Match, and it was basically a dating show, and you'd get like the female contestant and 3 male contestants, and she'd pick her perfect match kind of thing. My sisters and I, we'd try and do those kind of things, but it didn't really work as well. What really worked was when we got together with our cousins,
Mm,
and um we would be like, kind of, oh yes, we were the girls, and our male cousins would be the bachelors. Although because
oh.
we only had the cousins we saw the most, there were the 2 males and and my female cousin, and she was younger than me. And so generally it would be the 2 male cousins and one of us girls taking turns pretending to be a bachelor. And that's the kind, yeah. So when we were home by ourselves and there was only like the 3 of us, it would be, oh, contestant number one, like, and yeah, so we might have to pretend to be multiple contestants and things like that. Um, but yeah, so I just like that. That was another one. It's just, yeah, you saying with the skits and some of the stuff that you would do, and I'm just like, that reminds me of this one. Oh, that reminds me of this
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we used to
yes.
do that. I think that was back in the time, because my mother had a record. She was really into Barb Mandrell, and I know she had a TV show, and so that's why we would do these things. We would do the music, and you know what I mean? Back then, you didn't have the lyrics on the back of the records, you know what
Mm.
I mean? Or you couldn't go to the internet. So you had to stop and play and stop and play and stop and play to get all the words to the songs down.
Hmm. Although
Yeah.
actually, there were some. I'm pretty sure the Beatles, Sergeant Pepper, they had the lyrics on the back of that of those records because my parents had both
Mhm.
versions of Sergeant Pepper's, and I do remember saying, but that was the exception to the rule.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when I got cassettes like the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusions 1 and 2, and you opened the whole spread up and I had all the lyrics to all the songs, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant, because you could then sing along accurately. But that
Yeah.
was the cassette, not the record, so not
Yeah,
the
I went
vinyl.
along with the records as well too as I got older. I remember my first car ride and I had all the tapes after my first job and all that. So yeah, I'm with you.
Hmm.
Now, um, quite a bit you have written. I noticed that you credited having dreams. So a lot of what you've written has come from dreams?
Yes. So, okay. So, it's currently unpublished. Long story there. Part of it is to do with the fact that I'm trying to get it recovered and reformatted. My very first book, which is Disconnect, which is contemporary, the opening chapter to that, I actually had a dream one night, and I woke up and I got up, and part of what I got up and wrote, instead of going and making myself a hot milk with the cat was a real cat at that point in time as well.
Mm.
I went and wrote it down. So it was part dream, part action of what I actually did, but it was based on a dream that I had had. So that kind of jerking into wakefulness after having kind of a nightmare. And instead of like kind of going and making a hot chocolate and staring out the window to try and like kind of decompress from this nightmare, I went and typed it out. Um, that's where that started. There's a fantasy book that I'm writing, and it is based off a series of dreams, like the how, like basically the home where the FMC like goes to, and a few other things that happen were part of a dream that I had. Um, Altered Parts 1 and 2. There are two particular scenes in Altered Parts 1 and 2 um, that are they developed out of dreams that I had. The opening chapter for Family Justice, again, that was a dream I've been having, like a recurring dream I've been having since I was a teenager.
Mhm.
And it's evolved over time. And so a lot of them, some of them, sometimes it's a prompt I will get, or someone will say something, I'm like, that would make a really good story. Um, there's a sci-fi reverse harem one that I'm planning on doing at some point, I think next year, is based off a Tumblr thread, like basically um, Death World and humans, humans like the versions of Space Orcs kind of thing, or a friendly Space Orcs, and it's based off those. But a lot of what I write is derived from dreams, and if I start thinking about a particular um, like for example, the sci-fi reverse harem, even though it's kind of inspired by the Tumblr posts, some of the scenes that are going to be in the book are ones that when I got that idea in my head, I dreamt them. So
Mhm.
they do play quite a role in um, my books.
Hmm. That's interesting. I do have something similar to that. I have a sci-fi. There's 2 books in the series. I meant to be more. I should put that to everything. I have an attention span of a dog.
Ooh,
I'm always
squirrel.
on. Yeah, squirrel,
Yep.
squirrel, squirrel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've written 13 books, but my husband, I did go back recently to a book that I started writing years ago, and I won't bore you with the details, but I did go back and try to finish a series. But one of the things you just said was about dreams, and I've only ever had it happen to me once, and that was with that series, and it is a sci-fi. And I woke up, I know, right? And I woke up and I wrote it down, excuse me, because I was so into how it played out in my head.
Mm.
And I went ahead and, but I've only ever had that happen once. Usually the best ideas come from me when I'm in the shower. And I'll be like thinking, and I'll be like, oh crap, and you don't have anything to write anything down. You're like, oh man, that'd be great. And then I'll start talking to myself and do like, um, you know what I mean, the storyline and the context, or conversing between characters about what I would say and stuff like that. So yeah.
One of the good ways for me if I'm stuck when I'm writing, and this might sound really odd, I've got a couple of apps on my phone. They're colouring apps, so like colour by numbers
Mm,
and colouring in apps. And um, what I will do is sometimes when I'm really trying to mull over something in my book, I'll just go to the colouring apps, and it's just by doing that, it lets me detach enough to kind of I don't get fixated on the book because I've got to partly concentrate on what I'm doing,
mhm.
but I can actually spin scenes through my head if I'm stuck, and it just gives me it gives me enough of something else to focus on,
Right.
to let it kind of like percolate and brew in the back of my head, and then I can
Mhm.
actually go um, and write from there. So,
Now, is this anything to what I wrote down here? You had a place that you go called the Discord surface.
oh, the Discord server.
Oh, server. Sorry, it's
Yeah,
Discord
so yeah,
server.
I do have a Discord channel.
Hmm.
Um, so I really have to get on there more. I tend to lurk in other people's Discords at the moment because mine's not very active. I mean, if people, part of that is my fault. I try and get in there and try and interact with people. But if I'm there and I'm trying to interact and no one's interacting with me, it's like shouting into the void. And I'm like, I get sick of shouting into
Mm.
the void and not hearing any voices back. Because I have so many voices in my own head that I'm used to being responded to, even if it's me responding to myself.
Mm. Now,
So
what exactly is the Discord server?
Discord. Okay, Discord is
Discord.
another. It's basically another form of, you could say, social media.
Hmm.
These are servers where you can go. You can do like kind of your instant messaging and instant chats. You can do video calls. You can play
Oh, okay.
games. For writers, they will have like kind of an author or a writer only section. You can do sprints, so you can actually. There's a lot of stuff you can do on Discord, and you can stream music through Discord. You can stream games, like it'll say if you're playing a game on Discord and things like that. So it is a big thing, and you will find that there are a lot of content creators on other platforms that will have their own Discord servers as well, so that their fans have a place outside of TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Threads or wherever, that they can actually get together and they can converse with, and they can do stuff with. And a lot of authors do actually end up having a Discord server,
Mm.
so they can do like live readings, or they can get together and like basically write together and do sprints and stuff like that. So
Oh, that's interesting. I can you can tell that I'm really out of the loop because I had to ask you.
no, 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 that's fine.
I'll be honest with you. I've just now started. I mean I've posted to TikTok, but I've never really sat down and watched a lot of videos until as of late. Um, Laura and I did a podcast because of the whole subject of man or bear, you know.
Oh
And
yeah.
when I was oh, yeah, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So when I did that, I had to actually look for the content because it wasn't in my stream. I connect with a lot of other authors as well, as you know how that is. That kind of ends
Mm,
up being your circle.
yeah.
And so I realized it wasn't seeing a lot of it. So I actually had to look for it. And as I did that, this just tells you how old school. My husband and I were talking about it just the other day, and you hear the horror stories of women dating, not to trail on this subject, but this just tells you how far I'm out of the loop. And my husband and I, we were like, I'm like, I'm just overwhelmed with that whole idea of things that are happening nowadays. I'm like, geez, I either lived in a gigantic bubble or I'm just old as dirt.
Well,
um,
some of the stuff that people are talking about with that whole,
mm,
now, interestingly enough, and a lot of people don't realize this, the whole man versus bear question started off
hmm.
asking both men and
Yes,
women,
yes. Most
if
people don't know
your
that. Yeah.
daughter was lost in the woods, would you
Hmm.
prefer her to be lost in the woods with a bear or a strange man? And
Hmm.
both men and women said, bear.
Mhm.
Now, I have heard that that there are some men out there who have said if they had the choice between being lost in the woods between a bear or a strange woman, they would also go for the bear because of their experiences with women who are users and abuse, and there are women out there who are like that. And that, to
Mhm.
me, that's just like that's proving our point.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, it's just a lot. It's just men don't tend to report what happens, so therefore they are more likely to be allowed to leave alive.
Right. Well,
Whereas women,
when yeah, I get what you're saying because Laura and I, when we did that whole podcast, I looked up the statistics, and yeah, men don't. I don't want to bring this back to that show. I was just bringing it up for reference when we were talking about the whole social media, and actually, I had to look a little bit deeper to find because I had never seen anything about it. It hit me before we had the podcast. I think I saw maybe not even a full week of it, and that was because I saw it on Facebook. This is how old school. Oh, my husband puts in the room, he says, "If my wife found out I was in the woods with a woman, I'd be dead anyways." Yep.
well, here's the thing you're saying about all these experiences. I've actually now there I look back on some of the things I did when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and I'm surprised I came away as unscathed as I did. Saying that, I have been one of those women who would rather take the bear than the man because of my interactions. And the worst part is some of those interactions, some of the worst interactions that I've had were at the hands of men I knew and I trusted.
Yes. Well,
But
and you
and
being
it's because if it's all well, if I can trust someone, if someone I trust does this, what's a strange man going to do to me? And it's that kind
right.
of thing. And I mean, I know it's not everyone, but it is something that needs to be made aware of. So
You know what I think? And like again, I didn't want to trail off on this subject.
mm.
I brought it up only because of
I know I do have a
yeah, the
funny
internet.
spin.
Yeah.
I do have a funny spin to it later though. But
Okay.
well,
um, I understand what you're saying though, because I'm not saying every generation's this way, but I think Gen Xers have a thing where like what you were saying, your parents left you alone. You know what I mean? We didn't
mm,
think anything about it then. Your parents went, they left one of you in charge. You know what I mean?
yes,
We
and
could
then
go
and
out in
then
the yeah, you could
And
go
then
out in
and
the
then the
yard
youngest the youngest does something she's not supposed to do, drops a glass bottle on a tile floor and ends up in the hospital needing microsurgery on her little finger. Gee, I don't
yeah,
know who that
yeah.
was.
Yeah. Like my older sister leaves me alone. I fall into a rock. My parents rush me to the ER when they find out what's happened. Yeah,
No,
I
my
get you.
parents had to
I'm right
find us
with
at the
you.
hospital because the neighbours took us.
Right. That's what I know. That's what I'm saying. So I get you. I get
Yeah.
you. I think the thing about like I said, I didn't know what Discord was. This is how we got on the subject.
Mm,
But I guess I'm blown away by things, and maybe this dates me because I like my husband and we were talking about this and we were like, the sad thing about this is that when you look at either men being a certain way or a woman a certain way, and if you think about it, because we're a little bit older, so ours and we started so young in our marriage that it would be our children, the ones that are screwing up of today, the one people are talking about. So I'm always like, I can't just blame that person for their belief system now because I've heard so many things. Now,
mm.
because I looked up the man and the bear, I see it more from the woman's point in my algorithm on TikTok, So I'm listening to all this stuff and I'm like, holy crap, I'm so glad I'm not dating anymore. You know what
I
I mean?
know.
I'm like,
Oh, it was
I,
hell when I went through. But the
yeah.
funny thing with the man versus bear thing is, my Altered Shifters series, they are shifters, and there is a bear
Mhm.
shifter, and there
Mm.
one of my his name is Kane, and in the latest book that I wrote called Feral, there is a line that says it's basically behave or I'll let the bear have you. And it's basically because Kane is a bit of a daddy dom and is like he'll put you over his knee and it won't be the fun kind of spanking. But there is the line that says behave or I'll let the bear have you. And I'm just like it, when I was writing it, I wasn't thinking of that question.
Yeah.
Um, but looking at it now, it's just like, and it just kind of, that whole thing exploded right as my book is about to release. It's like, yep,
Mm.
behavioral, let the bear have you. It's like, okay.
Well, one thing about this line of talk, this brings us right into your book because I want to talk about how we went from dreams and then basing on your work. And the next thing I was going to ask you was for you to tell me a little bit about your newest book, which I believe is titled Feral.
Feral, yes. So, it's been like, when I say it's been a year, Mythic was released March, I think it was last year. So March 2023. We're in 24 right now, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
March 2023. And I had a lot of mental issues last year that basically made your writer's block.
Mm.
So I have a series called it's an Altered Shifters universe. And as I said, there's shifters there. And in Altered Part 1, you've got the FMC Sealer, who is, she meets her fated mate, Simon. And they're like 19 years old, about to go to college. So it's kind of academy, but not, because it's an alternate universe. It's a bit different education wise. They're actual adults, but because they're shifters, it's like kind of a delayed college entrance by 2 years because shifter stuff. It's explained in the
Mm-hmm.
book. And she meets her fated mate, and they're not ultra rare, but they're not common either. So it's a big thing if you meet your fated mate. And he's an idiot and he's an ass. Um, and he publicly rejects her and humiliates her. Something else happens on top of
Mm.
that as well that he's not responsible for. And it absolutely shatters her, and she becomes an altered shifter. And I go into that in the book, and then she meets her guys in her harem and blah, 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 blah. And then
Mm-hmm.
he comes back in Altered Part 2, and again, he's a bit of a dick at the beginning.
Mm.
And he was delivered like, and this is where it's like the whole thing of, are you a plotter or a pantser? And I'm a plantser, because I will have a bit of an idea, but I also like to write organically. And my muse is a feral emu. That's the polite version. My muse is a feral emu, and sometimes I'll be writing, and then she'll just do a hard like left or right turn, and I'm just like, where the hell are you going? And that's what
Mm.
she did, because I was ultimately, Simon was supposed to stay the villain. And then he started redeeming himself. And I realized he had a story and he could redeem himself. So he did this horrible, like brutal, stupid thing. But when he did it, he didn't realize what the consequences were at the time. He was ignorant to the consequences, what the true consequences of his actions were. He was still an ass. He was still arrogant. He still hurt her. There's a whole bunch of stuff that he did. But in Alter Part 2, he starts trying to redeem himself, and he does ask for forgiveness, and they give it to him. And I've had people go, oh, he shouldn't have been forgiven, oh, blah blah blah. It's like,
Mm.
just keep reading. Now, Mythic takes place 4 years after the end of Altered Part 2. And Simon he's a secondary character again in Mythic. But you see some of the consequences coming home to roost of his actions, because of stuff he did. It impacted on him and his line. He's now no longer the same person he was, and he is really trying hard to redeem himself. Even though he's been told by Scylla and her guys that they forgive him, there are still some people that don't. They really, and he's like, what do I have to do to earn their forgiveness? And he still hates himself for it. And the FMC in Mythic, who is Simon's friend, she turns around and says to him, you need to forgive yourself, because by not forgiving yourself, you're spitting in Scylla's, like spitting on her grace and mercy, and all the rest of that. So
Mm.
that you can't change, you are not responsible for what other people feel or what other people think. If you've apologized and it's sincere and you are trying to make amends and they refuse to see that, that's on them, not on you. And so
Mm.
he starts growing and starts moving forward, and then something happens in Mythic to Simon, and he disappears. Feral is Simon's story. And
Okay.
some of the reviews I've had, now there is a reason why I have been using, even though it's not as part of the blurb or whatever, when I was promoting it, I was using the tagline, let the bloodbath begin.
Mm.
There is obviously, because you got animal, like shifter animals and things like that. There is some violence in Altered Part 2 mainly. Um, and there is violence, and it can be, it's quite a bit of a graphic depiction of violence in Mythic.
Mhm.
Feral is on a whole new level. It is brutal.
Mm.
And this is a true redemption arc. This isn't just, I'm going to hurt this character until I feel like he's been hurt enough and suffered enough, and he gets his redemption just because he's suffered pain. No, he also shows growth. He shows personal growth. Yes, he suffers pain because I'm a vindictive petty bitch, and he needs to suffer, kind of thing. But when I have people coming back going, oh, you didn't have to make him suffer that much. And this is a character that a lot of, now, I have an author friend, Mika Michaels. She read Altered Part 1. She hated Simon. Another author friend of mine, Shannon French, she's done a co-write with Thora Woods, if people like Gilded Dreams, but there's a bunch of us, we're really pretty tight knit.
Mhm.
Shannon also hates Simon, and when she first read it, she's like, I hate it. I want to poke him in the eye. I want to stab him in the eye with my finger. God, she was that wound up. And both of them said, no, no, you cannot redeem him. There is no redeeming him. I hate him. I will never forgive him. Now, Shannon hasn't read Feral yet. She is going to read it. I have, on public record, Mika Michaels has stated that, yes, Simon suffered enough and she forgave him.
Mm.
This is someone who said, no, I will never forgive him. He's better off dead, kind of thing. And
Mm.
her response to him is kind of where I got my like, there's a character, Granny Loretta, who really doesn't like Simon because of what he did.
Mhm.
And I took her, like the way she felt about Simon, and fed that into Granny Loretta. And yeah, and even she's like admitted, yeah, okay, no, no, he's suffered enough. And I said, it's not just the suffering, he does grow. And I've got this in my acknowledgements for it. Thora Woods, um, she is actually one of the people who told me, if you're going to do a redemption arc, you need to do it properly. And she put me on to a YouTuber who was looking at like certain writings and episodes, and he picked the most perfect redemption arc you could think of in modern pop culture, and that is Prince Zuko from Avatar
Mhm.
and his redemption arc. And I watched that, and it's like, yes, you see, and you've got to see this growth, and he's got to have this. It's not just, oh, he's redeemed himself because he's hurt so much. It's not just, oh, it's not miscommunication or a misunderstanding. No, he did something appalling. He did something horrible. He paid for that, and he has been trying to become a better person. And it's 112,000 words
Oh, wow.
of anguish and pain and growth, and yeah. So I've had readers say, yeah, make sure you have your coffee and your water and your tissues and your chocolates and your wine and all the rest of that there for reading it, because you're going to need them. So, but
Yeah.
that's Feral. It's the fourth book now. Technically, you can read it as a standalone, but it's best if you read it from Altered Part 1 onwards to get the full backstory and the full information of everything. So I have had readers who came at it and hadn't read any of the others, and they were like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go back and read the others now, because I figured that there's stuff that has happened that I'm not aware of in this book, but that's fair enough because it's happened in a previous book, and you don't want to rehash it again and again and again and again. So, but yeah, if you want to get the full experience and the full emotional range of hatred and redemption for Simon, start at Altered Part 1.
Right. I can I've never well, your writing count is beyond me. I'm more of a novella girl. Not
Oh,
not to read or listen to, but what I write because I like
Feral's
to
not even my longest.
Oh, goodness.
No, no, it's 112,000 words. Mythic was about 104. The Altered Duet, which started off as one book, but I split it into two, is like 67 and 62,000 words each. No, my longest
Mm.
book so far is Family Justice, which is it's a contemporary MF mafia romance, dark mafia romance, and that's at 134,000.
Mhm.
It's over. The paperback is over 600 pages. It's a chunk.
Wow.
It's a chunk.
Now, when you were speaking, you said last year you went through a rough patch where you
Hmm.
had, um, your writer's block.
Yep.
So, now this book was when did this one come about? Was this from the last year, or did you start it prior?
Okay, so when I wrote Altered Part One and Part Two, as I said it was supposed to be a single standalone book, and then
Mhm,
it was two story arcs. It needed to be split into two, and then you had side characters going, "Yeah, hello, we need our story." And
mhm.
so I started writing Mythic. Now, I was writing Mythic in 2022, and I was having writer's block, and I couldn't really I didn't know what to do. So I took time off, wrote Family Justice, then went back and started writing Mythic. I then
Mm.
had to pause writing Mythic to plot out Feral because of it's an overlapping time. As I said, like halfway through Mythic, Simon disappears, and that's where Feral starts. So I had to plot out what was going to happen so I could finish writing Mythic.
So,
So
not really a full-blown writer's block, you just had a stunt in a book that you were
no,
writing at
no,
the time.
this was before I released Mythic. Now I released Mythic, I said in March last year. So I
Mhm,
had the plot of Feral there. And then like part of what happened was I had three book signings that I went to. I had two book signings in March, plus I had another event that was non-book related in early March. So and then April we flew to Australia for a month for a holiday. But at the last book signing in March, which was Fiction Fans and Ball Gowns in Liverpool, which was a week before we flew to Australia, I got a grade 2 calf muscle tear.
mm.
Um, and a week before I was flying internationally. And so basically, I spent the entire holidays on crutches, which is
Mm.
fun. Um, and stuff happened. I mean, going back home for the first time since 2015, kind of thing. I mean, I have seen my family since, like they've come over here, but that was the first time traveling back. Being injured and a bunch of other stuff that happened, as well as like when I came back over here, and then I had another book signing, so I wasn't really writing much when I was at the book signings and on holidays. Um, and there was some stuff that happened around that time that made my mental health take a deep nosedive.
Mhm.
Now, I'm very open with the fact that I have been diagnosed with anxiety. I also have depression. I
Mhm.
get the SADS, I get the seasonal depression, and I also have it's a major depressive disorder. So I have the fun times with my head.
Mm.
I my my like people close to me have also said they would not be surprised if I am I have undiagnosed ADHD or something similar,
Mhm.
because I tick so many boxes with that. But I I don't say, oh, I'm undiagnosed. It's like, yeah, quite possibly have it, but I haven't gone and been diagnosed. But my mental health's fun enough as it is. I don't need yet another label. Um, and
Well,
I mean,
I don't
when my
there's
mental
not
health tanks,
yeah.
it's the kind of mental health tanking where um, my husband will start hiding the sharp implements and
Mhm.
keeping a very close eye on me. I tend to
I'm
self
sorry
harm.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's something
I
I've dealt with like most of my life since I was a teenager, and I do struggle with certain ideation and that, but I made a promise to my mother when I was like 15, and I also have made a promise to my husband and my son that I would do my best to stick around. And so when I am going on a bit of a nosedive, certain like there are certain protocols that we have in place, and my writing doesn't. It's my writing suffers. Um, I can't write certain things. I mean, if I'm in that dark place, I can't write dark stuff because it's going to send me right off the deep end.
Mhm.
When I'm in that darker place, I struggle to find light things to write about. So my writing does suffer. And that is what happened through. I had a major depressive episode basically for several months over the middle part and towards the end of last year. And I finally started coming out of that funk in September.
I can
So,
relate. Back, some time ago, I spent 3 years in therapy, and I had, um, thoughts myself. Um, Maybe not to the where you were saying, but I think every person is different, every person handles things differently. But, yeah, I my whole thing was if I were behind a car, that I wanted to be able to just shut my eyes and let someone else do the work. You know what I mean? To
mhm,
take me out from the so I understand that dark place. Um, my father died last year,
I'm sorry.
and well, thank you, and we had some things before that happened, my husband and I, um, a loss of a child in our life, and I don't wanna get into any detail of that, but,
Mm, that's fair enough.
we also lost the ability to be able to adopt, and the build of that went right into the death of my father, and so I totally understand the feelings of weight on you, the emotion, so I get it. Mental health, and I think there should even be more talks about it. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Until we're blue in the face, because a bigger light that can be shined on that just means that people can be able to get the help and everything that they need. You know what I mean? So that you're not living it by yourself. So,
One of the great things I've found about the author community is that a lot of authors struggle some with some form of either neurospiciness or mental health issue, and
mhm,
so they are very accepting and open and supportive of those kind of issues. And one of the things I was absolutely so grateful for last year, um, couple of the book signings that I go to, they also do anthologies every year.
mhm,
And last year, Authors at the Armories, which is in Leeds, and that's the one I'm actually going up to. Like I'm attending it in like 2 weeks' time. It's the one that's in early June every year. Last year, um, their anthology was actually called "Writing Is My Superpower," and all of the people who submitted a piece in that, it wasn't a fictional story. It was basically an essay talking about their experiences with mental health issues. Now, some of them,
mm,
it was, this is my child, this is my husband or my wife or my parent. This is, as someone who has lived around that, this is what it is like. But the majority of them are, it was, this is my own personal experience suffering from X, Y, or Z. And
mhm,
mine, it was my entry was called the Shadows of the Void, or the Shadows in the Void. And it's actually the blurb on the back of it is an excerpt from my thing, and it talks about when I go into a depressive episode, what it is like for me. And the whole thing of, oh yeah, depression, it's like a black dog. It's like, to me, no, I had a black dog. His name was Shadow, and he
mhm,
was one of the most faithful, loving, like friendliest dogs. So for me, no, depression is not like a black dog because he would sit on my feet. He was loyal. It was more like being sucked in like in a whirlpool and sucked down, and crashing of waves and all the and it was very visceral and um, vivid, like the depictions that I put. And I said, this is for me when I'm going through this is what I'm experiencing.
mhm,
And it raised money for, I don't know if it's still available on Amazon, but it raised money for mental health charities and the suicide charities, I think it was, over here in the UK. But the number of authors who opened up and shared their own um, experiences to help shine a light, and I wouldn't say normalize, because we don't, honestly, I don't want it normalized. It's not a
mhm,
nice thing, but it shouldn't be made shameful or taboo. It should be accepted and supported, and um, people who have it should be able to ask for assistance and receive it.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I have noticed with the writing community. They are very, very. I mean, it can be a very toxic place as well, but
Oh, yeah.
majority of the time, I mean, everywhere it can, but
Mhm.
yeah, but majority of the time, the majority of the people within the writing community are warm-hearted, giving, loving, supportive, open, generous people. So,
Yeah. I think it's full round on that, and I do agree with you. I think a lot of creative people struggle.
mhm.
And it's not just, strictly writers or authors. I think a lot of people who are artistically inclined, have a lot of emotion like that. I mean, you can't go to a museum and see a piece of art that you can't feel something. You know what I mean?
Van
Especially the
Gogh.
darker piece. Yes, yes,
That's
exact
one of
very
my
good, yeah.
favorite Doctor Who
Mhm,
episodes is
mhm.
Vincent and the Doctor. And it's he Van Gogh has always been one of my favorite artists of all time. And as Bill Nye says in that, it's like you see this man who had so much pain and suffering and anguish, and yet out of all that, instead of going dark, he produced something so beautiful. And
Mhm.
whenever I watch that, I'm starting to choke up now because I think it's like, oh my god. But it's true.
Yeah.
But it's not that you'd be surprised how many teachers,
Mhm.
when I was teaching, you would probably, I mean, maybe not, I don't know, but the number of teachers that also have mental health, and it's not, oh,
Mhm.
they bow under pressure with kids. No, they go into it with these issues anyway, and they want to try and help because they can see it, like the kids coming up. They want to be able to support kids and
Mhm.
help them through a really difficult time of their life because they know what it's like.
Right. We could spend days on this subject alone because even if you were to dive deeper into today's society, the woes and financial woes that are put on our lives. Um, I know here in the States, I'm not sure about, like I said, in the UK, but here we have women's rights being affected. So I can fully understand why a lot of mental health is struggling, especially in this day and age.
I will
S-
say, as an Australian living in the UK, both from my perspective of the Australian and UK, um, uh, word would be good. Yeah, like with uh,
Mm,
um, not communities as such, but like what they have available to them.
mhm.
We do have a lot more support, and there is a lot more out there than the women in
Yes.
the US do. And I
Yeah.
sit there
So
and look at
much.
some of the stuff and going, I mean, um, I don't want to try and politicize this or anything, but one of the big ones, Roe versus Wade, in Australia and the UK,
Yeah.
that is not an issue. That is not an issue. You have to get counselling and you have to see a doctor and things like that. You can't just go off willy nilly and just decide. But those rights have been established and they are protected.
I think
Nate, uh,
go
hang on.
ahead.
So Nadine just, I think it's Nadine, put a question. Am I an author? Yes, I am an author.
Mhm.
So sorry, but you were going to
Yes.
say.
No, no, you're fine. When we talk about Roe versus Wade, I just gonna put this point out and I wanna jump back to your work.
Mhm, that's fine.
Um, when you talk, Roe versus Wade, um, it wasn't just about, abortion rights, and people, um, in their faith, and my honest belief, and people are gonna either hate me or love me for this. No, okay. That's kinda how I write too, you either love it or you totally freaking hate it, so I'm good with it.
Yep.
But, um, the biggest thing is I think a lot of people, with faith have a lot of opinions on that. I think that's why today's people are dropping away from faith
Mm.
because of this, because of using religion in such a way to, infringe on people's body and their autonomy, you know what I mean?
And that
So
is again something that is not it is not that prevalent in the
Mhm.
UK or Australia. Um,
Yes.
the like, do we have religion? Yes, we do. Is it so pervasive? No. And that's from someone who lives in a country where the monarch is also the head of the church,
Yeah.
and there is religion there, but it is not. I mean, yes, the kids do religious education in school, but it's they learn about all religions. It's not just,
The
and
biggest
it's
point here from now, I don't wanna be too political on this, but just from the
yeah.
biggest point, this will pretty much tell you me in a nutshell, okay? Um, when a bill is passed here in the United States, and this is something people do not grasp, even here in the United States. When a bill is passed, it is not just the headline that's on that bill. People need to understand that. When any bill is passed, there are several other things in this bill. And one of the things that was in the Roe versus Wade was privacy, the Privacy Act. What people don't understand now is that you don't have that. You don't
Mhm.
have that. They can look into your history now. They can see your medical stuff. Before they could not do that. Now they can.
Yeah, because
When anything is done here in the United States, this is just my perspective, but it's like, let's blow up this big balloon, okay? And people will focus on this huge balloon of whatever it is. And then there's 20 million things down here in the corner they don't want you to know that they're doing
yeah,
because of it.
apparently that's what happened with the TikTok legislation. It was something
Mhm.
else completely,
Yes.
and it was written in a margin somewhere. Oh, and we
Mhm.
like and yeah, but
Mhm.
I'll say this just at the end of a political thing. Like to kind of wrap up so it's no longer political. There's a saying that opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one.
Yes,
I
they
like
do.
to I like to add on a
Yeah.
little bit. Yes, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got them, and you should only share them with those who want it.
Yeah.
Because
There's the
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't want to see your asshole. If I want to see your asshole, I will let you know. It's like if I want your
Yeah.
opinion, I will ask for it.
Mhm.
If you're going to give it to me unsolicited and I tell you to bugger off, don't
Mhm.
take offense because you've given it to me unsolicited. It's like putting a dick pic in my DMs. It's like
Yes.
I don't want to see that.
The biggest
Um,
thing that I hate is being pushed into the whole political realm of stuff and religion. I think those are 2 things that, especially religion. That's great.
I mean,
You have great if you have religion, I applaud you for that, but do not push it off on me.
yeah,
That's my
I,
whole
I
theory
have
about
I have
that. Yeah.
beliefs. I have
Mhm.
beliefs, but they are my own
Mhm.
personal belief, and I
Yes.
will I will fight to defend the right for
Yes.
everyone to have their own belief or lack
Mhm.
thereof, and so long as nobody is being harmed, and
Yeah.
like you're a consenting, like especially, and this is the same thing with sex and things like that. You are two willing consenting adults.
Mhm.
Nobody is being harmed unless it's consensual, and that's like a whole like BDSM thing. That's a whole thing. But if it's enthusiastic, willing consent between adults, I don't care. Um, I don't care what you're doing because you are two consenting or three or four or however many consenting adults, and it's enthusiastic consent. It's none of my business. I might ask you about it if I find it interesting or I have a question, but honestly, it's none of my business. Um,
Right.
yeah.
That's
Hey,
that's my
Mr.
husband.
Mr. Deha, I had the original dick pic. I used to have a camera that had film. I had a film camera, and I had a housewarming party, and one of my friends absconded with my camera and was taking photos. And I know that whose dick it was because I knew the guy and he had a Prince Albert, and I got the photos developed, and there on the very very last photo was a Prince Albert, and I'm like, yeah, apparently my friend Eddie had gone and taken a photo of my friend Giles while he was taking a leak of his dick and didn't tell me about it. I have old school dick pic.
So
And Nathan, yes, my name is MF. Like my author name is MF Moody. Um, so
now,
yes.
speaking of MF Moody and your work, push this back into the gear that way.
So I
You
will
and
just
I
run with whatever.
Well, I think you and I can get lost in many subjects, and we would probably
Mhm.
not touch anything twice because we've already drifted a lot a bit. We went from social media, the big thing in social media, and then to big things that's going around in the world that are affecting all of us. So I think you and I could tangle on a lot of different things, and I would love to have you on for any topic because we could go on forever.
I'm
This
happy to come back if you ever want me to come back and talk about a specific topic. I'm here.
Hey, I've got the rest of the year to fill. We can fill in some dates. Let's
Ooh,
start writing some topics down because I'm pretty sure that we probably have a lot of wavelength of the same. But even if we don't, that makes a good conversation to have a little bit of
mhm.
different points. So when we talk about you and your work, and you've mentioned your, oh, my husband says, call it MF after midnight.
Oh no! I love just with my name. My my friend Mika Michaels. When we first met, she's like, MF Moody. Oh, I love your pen name. It's like mother effing Moody. How on earth did you come up with that? And I just like, I never even thought of that. I'm taking that. Now I have stickers. I have merch. I have a jumper and a t-shirt that has a MM, like mother effing Moody on it. So
That's awesome. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Sorry,
So when we
because
talk about No, that's all right. When we talk about you and your work, and of
mhm,
course you've mentioned a few of your friends and your writer and community about how they felt about your last book, that we were talking about here, Feral, and
mhm.
being his redeeming story. So I've read that you find yourself writing some of your friends into your books.
Oh yeah.
So when you write this kind of stuff, is everyone like, "Oh, freak, who's she talking about?"
Okay. So here's the thing, because a lot of people will ask me who is my favorite character out of all of my books. Who is my favorite character?
Mhm.
And I tell them who it is, and that's Knox. And that's because Knox was actually based off a friend of mine, and his name was Kevin. And so yes, Kevin is now making his way into other books as Kevin. But Kevin was one of the most foulest mouthed people you would ever come across. He was a short order cook. He worked in
Mhm.
a kitchen. So think Canadian Gordon Ramsay,
Mm.
that would drink and smoke. um, but he wouldn't necessarily be as confrontational as Gordon Ramsay was. But the whole swearing thing, but he would take you as you were. Now, if he didn't care, and he would talk about like the like 80-year-old woman down the hall from him, the homeless guy out the front. You talk about the gay dude living down the road. He didn't care what color you were, what gender you identified as, what your sexuality was, what your religion was, anything about that. He did not care so long as you weren't a dick or an asshole.
Mhm.
He'd say mainly an asshole, but I say dick. So long as you weren't that. If you were if you treated him with respect and you treated him well, he would treat you with respect. And yeah, and he would. He didn't care because it's like you're a person. You might be going through some really hard stuff, and he's not going to judge you for that because that's your life, and they're your choices to make. Just don't be a dick, kind of thing.
Mhm.
If you were horrible, he would treat you like less than dog shit under his shoe. He wouldn't put up with it, and every second word out of his mouth was a swear word.
Mm.
But he had a heart of gold. He would give you the shirt off his back.
Mhm.
Now, one of the hard things about Mythic was when I was writing Mythic, Kevin died.
Mm.
Kevin knew I was writing books. He knew I was writing. He did not know that he was the inspiration for Knox. Kevin was 2 years older than me. He slipped and fell and hit his head. And then while he was in hospital, he suffered massive coronary episode and died.
Mm.
And he is missed worldwide. He touched a lot of hearts and had a lot of friends. And he had when you hear the people say, oh, he had that whiskey gravel voice,
Mhm.
he had that voice. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, and he is my favorite character. Saying
Mm.
that, in my first book, Disconnect, there is a character called Noah Bly. That's my husband. He's based off my husband, the way he looks, what he wears, the job, the way he spoke. That's my husband, and he is not my most favorite character. But yeah, there are especially in Disconnect, my very first book, there are a lot of people in my family, and it's because it's partly autobiographical. A lot of what
Mhm.
the FMC goes through is stuff that I went through. As I said, I was in several abusive relationships, and um, that is kind of touched on in the book, and I do talk about it a bit in my acknowledgements of that book.
Mhm.
But certain people, I mean, I might use the name of one person, but it's the personality of a different person. And yes, there are people um, in Disconnect that if when my family reads it, they know who I'm talking about.
Right.
Um, I will borrow names. So technically, my sisters' names are in one, and my nephews and nieces' names, my nephews and niece names are in one of my books. Just because I needed names, so I just popped them in there. Um, I will take certain um, um, like kind of factors or personality traits of friends and family and people that I know and insert them into characters. I'm not saying so. For example, Knox. Knox is a shifter. Kevin was human, wholly human.
Mhm.
Knox is a
Mhm.
shifter. Knox was a tiger shifter. He actually shifts into a saber-toothed tiger. Knox, because of his trauma as a child, like the trauma he went through as a child, hates people to start off with, but he also hates other cat shifters with a passion. He despises and loathes other cat shifters. So his automatic default setting around other people is I'm an asshole. And
Mhm.
then when it comes to other people who are also cat shifters, it's stay the hell away from me, otherwise I'm going to do my best to kill you because I hate cat shifters. Um, and so he's like it's he doesn't let people in. There is a very very small number of people he will let in. And when he finally lets Scylla in, now Scylla, in who's my FMC in Altered Parts 1 and 2, she's a snow leopard shifter. She's a cat shifter. So there is that hatred because she's someone outside his circle, and a hatred because she's another cat shifter. And he gradually overcomes that, and he opens his circle up. And by the time you read Feral, he has a number of cat shifters in his inner circle. Um, and it's because he's kind of opened up with that. Now that was not like Kevin. Kevin wasn't like that. Kevin was a very friendly Pete. He was foul mouthed, and he was kind of gruff and might be a bit scary to look at, but he was at heart of gold. He wasn't an asshole to everyone kind of thing. Whereas Knox is an asshole to everyone, but as soon as you're part of that inner circle, he will lay down his life for you kind of thing.
Right.
Um, so there's that difference. Um, so there was that aspect I used of Kevin in Knox. And so
Mhm.
there'll be an aspect of this friend or this relation or this person that I will use in my characters, but it won't necessarily just be a carbon copy of them with a different name.
Right. And I think one thing to point out here too for people is when you mentioned your husband, and not your favorite character in the book, but here's the thing. I think this is for me, you let me know if I'm wrong. But for me, I think as an author, the characters that have so many layers, you know what I mean? That have
Mm.
that dig and that pull that come out of us when we write them becomes our favorite because of whatever they go through, the whole buildup of them becomes our favorite character. Am I wrong?
Well, I don't think you're wrong, but the other thing with me at least is my husband's character. I'm going to call him my husband's character because Noah. As I said, he physically, the description of him physically resembles my husband. What he would wear, what he did as a job, certain things he would say and do. As I said, Disconnect was semi-autobiographical. I mentioned places in that book. We actually lived in those places. We went to those places. And at the end of the book, it's that kind of it's the growing relationship between Ali, who's the FMC, and Noah, and how they kind of find each other, because she's getting over an abusive relationship, and it's kind of doing that. And at the end of that book, they're happy. I'm living the happily ever after.
Mhm.
I'm living that. Now, no, that is not how my husband proposed to me or anything like that. But I mean, physically, I'm not Ali.
Mhm.
She's a bit different. I mean, there are some similarities, but again, there are differences as well. But I had to overcome a lot of trauma, and my husband helped with that. And some of like I said, that kind of, it's not exactly our love story, but part of our love story is in there. He's not my favorite character because our story hasn't ended yet. It's still growing.
Right.
Um, However, every single acknowledgement, if you go through all of my books and all the acknowledgements, he is in every single one. Um,
Right.
and one of the things, I actually wrote this on his card for the wedding anniversary that I gave him to him yesterday. And it's like, kind of, no returns, no refunds. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. Self-inflicted, no sympathy. I tell him that all the time. He goes, you are so weird. And I'm like, you married me. What does that say about you, kind of thing. But yeah, he he will say things to me that will make it into the books. Um, like there's a line that I'm going to be using in one of my books. It's like, kind of, they have the situational awareness of a potato, um, or of a sentient potato or something. And my because we were driving to London, and there was a car in front, and they had no situational awareness. And I said, they have the situational awareness of a potato. And my husband turned around and said to me, actually, potatoes have good situational awareness. Have you ever seen them looking for dirt? And so that whole kind of exchange is going to be making it into one of my books. There are several exchanges we have had that have actually made it into my books. And they are some absolute corkers. And yeah, and so he does appear in there. But um, I think the reason why, as I said, Noah is not my favorite character is because I'm still living the happily ever after.
That
Um,
makes sense.
and my other characters, they might have certain traits. Um, and I don't know if Kevin hadn't died, I don't know if Knox would have remained my favorite character because of what I put Simon through. But I
Mhm.
think with the way that Knox had changed and opened up, without going through what Simon went through, I think that's part, and the way he is so solid, and therefore, for people he brings in, I think that's another reason why he's one of my favorites. So
Right. But, Kevin, he stays alive with you,
yeah,
and he can come back and be close enough to your heart with any new book or even reliving the character that you've created. So I commend you and Kevin for having such a strong effect on your work. So
yeah,
that says a lot about him and his character.
yeah.
So before we end tonight,
Mhm.
tell me what's coming next. What can we expect? What the exciting is on the horizon?
Okay, so right, I am currently very, very close to finishing my contribution to a collaboration.
Mm.
If anyone, a couple of years ago, I collaborated with a bunch of other authors for a book that was called Fraternizing with Monsters. It wasn't an anthology because you had a central character who was going through a story, and then she interacted with other characters, and their chapters were written by other authors, me included, about their experience. So it was a collaboration rather than an anthology. And we're doing the same thing again. It's like been 2 years later, and this time it's aliens. And
Mm.
I'm writing the central character this time instead of just writing a single chapter. So that's been in the works for a while, and trying to get, because everyone's lives and everything like that, trying to get it all like sorted out. And I'm right, kind of the finish line is in sight with that.
Mhm.
That one is called it hasn't been put on pre-order or anything yet, but it's a Chaos Coven collaboration, and it's called Probing the Cosmos. And it's going to be aliens and smutty and everything. So yes, that one should be coming out in July. Um, I am planning on writing, because I have an series called Would You Love a Monster Man, and the first book of that came out last year in October, and that was A Sexton's Work Is Never Done, or as
Mm.
my PA likes to put it, Arsewind. I did not see that acronym when I came up with the title. But yeah, so A Sexton's Work, that was the first one, and I was planning on writing the second book in that series to come out in August. However, I'm probably going to have to push that back, because I also have a shared world with there's 13 of us authors, so there's 15 books in total. I'm right, and it's the Femme Fatale Freak Show world, Paranormal Assassins. My book for that is called Cause of Death, um, and that will be out in September. So I want to focus, once I finish the Chaos Coven collaboration, I want to focus on that and get that done, because it's going to my book is going to be an Amigaverse, but it's not going to be your standard Amigaverse. And it's my first foray into Amigaverse as well. I also have another book in my Altered Shifters Universe series called Legendary. It is a proper standalone. It's basically, there are characters you meet all through the first four books, Jackson and Tom, and these are, it's an These guys are mated. They are mated in Altered Part 1. You meet them and they've been mated for many years, and it's basically, it's a standalone because it's them telling their story of how they met and how they ended up together. So that's going to come out, and then the other one that I want to try and write start writing, or write before the end of the year, after Probing Cosmos, Cause of Death, Legendary, and the second in the Would You Love a Monster Man, is I have a dark duet, dark
Mhm.
MF duet, and when I say dark, it's going to have a lot of the taboo stuff. It is going to be dark.
Mm.
Um, the MMC and the FMC will not be having any sexual relations in the first book at all, because of what she has gone through. It will be explicit, it will be
Mm.
graphic, it will be violent, it will be horrible, it will be twisted, and it will end with a major plot twist and cliffhanger. And
Wow.
then
You've got
yeah, because I want to really try and have most of part 2 of the second book, because it's going to be called Her Soul Duet. And I want to have most of the second book already written before I publish the first, because I want to get them out fairly close together.
right. Well, it sounds like you have quite a bit, and like I
Oh,
said, I would
that's just this year. I have an
Yeah.
there's like, I people say, "Oh, are you going to be writing more in your Altered Shifters universe?" I have at least 6 books listed on my like my work in progress kind of to-do list. Definite. They are this character, this character, this character, this character, this character. There are probably another half a dozen on top of that I need to write, and I don't know how many more spin-offs and bonus stories and things like that for that world. That I have no clue when that world will ever stop being written for.
Mm.
I also know my because I had written the first 5 chapters for this like Family Justice was supposed to be a single standalone book, and it's now going to be the first book in a trilogy. And the second book, Family Loyalty, I've written the first 5 chapters of that. That is going to be on next year's list of things to write. My sci-fi reverse harem that I was telling you about, that is on my list for next year. The fantasy one is on the list for next year. There are so many on the list for the next like 2.5 years. It's like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, I've got like 15.
I haven't got that much plan ahead. I've got about 5 more books. I've already got half done that I've got to finish. So, but I want to thank you so much for being on. We're going to go into our Amazon deal today, so don't leave me up because I still want to have just a second.
All right.
Okay. So today, guys, I always try to choose something, and I have 2 of these. And you have to understand, these are not the cheapest things. And I know in today's economy, and of course, the ones I've gotten are used. I know you can find a few more used ones on Walmart too, because I did look. But this one is the Dyson V8 cordless vacuum cleaner. $349, but that's after 26% off because they're normally about $469.99. But here's the neat thing, and I don't know if a lot of people do know of this. These kind of vacuums are awesome. I love them. I have animals. I have 4 dogs, 2 of which are in the sound booth with me, and yes, it is warm in here. And anyways, so you can get these on payments. I don't know if you guys know that you can pay $69.80 for 5 months. So if you really need a good vacuum, these are it. I mean, I have never had an issue. They don't clog. They do nothing of that. And trust me, I have lots of dog hair and cat hair. I have it all. And I also have long hair that, you know what I mean? You always find those strands. I'll have the link in the bio if anyone's interested. MF Moody, you are fab. I know we hit every subject we could have possibly in the whole stream of stuff. I know we were all over the page today, but I truly enjoyed talking with you.
Oh,
And if you
thank you for
ever
having
want
me.
to,
I had a lot
it's
of
my
fun.
pleasure. It's my pleasure. And if you ever want to come back,
Oh yeah.
we might have to organize our thoughts so we stay on the same page of one topic at a time.
Yeah, we might have to go right. This month these are the questions. This month these are the questions.
Yes, you're right. And I am more than willing to do that because I'll be honest with you, I love a talker. I love someone that can keep up with me. But I think if we do it, let's get together on this because I really would love to do that. We'll start out some topics. And Laura says, did she just say she'd come back on every month? Let's organize this.
Yeah. Okay. I will say this. I'm actually coming over to the States next year because I am going to be at Getting Witchy with it in NOLA in at the end of June. We need to do one where you are trying Australian foods and snacks that I suggest to you, and even if I send them to you, and then I will try American ones and we will critique them.
Oh, that'd be
Because
cool.
I will tell you right now, I eat Vegemite with a spoon.
Nice.
I don't recommend you do that if you've never had it
Yeah,
before, but
I
I eat
don't know
Vegemite
what
with
it
a spoon.
is.
It's basically it's the thing that we like the Australians love to tell Americans that, oh yeah, this is chocolate. It's not. It is very, very salty. It's black as pitch. It's a beef extra, or no, it's a yeast extract because you got Marmite in the UK, which is a liquid, and you got Vegemite in Australia, and yeah, it's a yeast extract. Lots of vitamin B, but it's very salty and it's really good on toast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will have to
Okay.
do
Okay.
something.
Okay. So yes, I've tried that. It is not. No, it's not chocolate, but I do eat it with a spoon. Actually, there is a TikTok. I have a TikTok of a guy. He's like, oh, Australians answer these questions, and it's a lightning fast. And I actually show me eating Vegemite on a spoon.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I have a TikTok
You
with
know
that.
what? With the way we talk today, because we've already gotten an hour and 19 minutes, the way we talk, and that's only what I recorded. That's not the preamp before we got into the conversation. The way we talk, we could probably get several podcasts out of one.
Go for it, like, if you want. But as I said, I'm welcome to,
Oh.
as we say, and you guys might say this as well, but as we say in Australia, get together and shoot the shit.
Yeah.
So, um,
Definitely. Yeah.
um,
And we
but
should definitely get Laura on the mic to keep us on track, because I'm sure that we'll
we need a referee. Yes,
yeah, we'll roam. We're gonna roam. We're gonna be like cattle. We're gonna roam the hell out of that shit.
oh,
There's some language for you.
yeah.
I want to thank you so much, MF Moody. You were a delight. I really love the conversation, and I really do think we should work something out and try to do some, because I love someone with a lot of opinions and thoughts on things, and coming from a whole other culture, a whole other part of the world. I think that that would be so entertaining, but we're going to have to get some topics and things arranged. So
Yeah.
thank you for being with me tonight, and I'd love to
Oh,
have you back. I want to
yes.
thank you to our listeners. Great interaction tonight. Really love it. If you guys tune in, we've been doing really well. We're up to 2.9K on downloads. So
That's
I am so
fantastic.
excited. Yeah, I know, right? I'm so excited about that. Every time that my shows get downloaded, I'm just like thankful as all get out. By the way, I learned too, if you have an Audible app on your phone, did you know you can listen to the podcast there too? I think that's
Ooh,
cool as
I
crap.
do
I
have
know,
Audible on
right?
my phone.
You can
That's how I
listen to
listen
all
to
the
I listen to my
podcasts.
audiobooks when I'm driving to and from
Yes.
book signings because I'm, like, driving, like, 5 hours down the road. It's like, "Yep, let's just whack on, like,
Right?
one of C. Rochelle's Villainous Things series." I love her
Mm.
series. But, yeah,
I love audibles. I'm telling you, I
mm,
can't get enough. And I love it when there's a bunch of the series too, because I'm like, yes, because it's like a continuing movie that just goes on and on and on. I
one
love
thing I would love to do, and I know you're trying to wrap up, and I will shut up in a moment. I do
it.
want to get my Altered Shifters Universe, on Audible, and if you go on TikTok, there is, um he goes by Nick the Forge Bear, Nick Grizz, and he's fantastic. He is starting to do audio narration,
Mhm.
and again, I do have, a TikTok where I've kind of duetted with one of his, clips, and there is a character in Mythic. It is inspired by and based on one of the, like, ways he talks, like, because he will do accents and voices, and it's his
Nice.
gentleman werewolf, and that dark,
Mm.
deviant. It's delicious, and it's, I do have a TikTok there, and it's like, if you want this, so if you read Mythic, check out that TikTok clip of mine, with Nick, and that is the voice, that dark, mysterious voice. That is who inspired it. And I am trying to save up money so I can get Altered Parts 1 and 2 narrated, and then get Mythic, because I want him to narrate Mythic for me.
Nice. Well, I've started doing audibles. I have my sound booth in here. I just started doing my own, but I aspire to be that. I would not protest me to be anything great, because I just started mine. So I'm still trying to find my niches. I've done 2 books, and I have 1 that I've started. So, but it is a challenge. It's a lot of work to do stuff like that. I do enjoy it, but that would be a goal of mine, to get so much better like that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, and I will look up your TikTok videos, and we should get together on some extra, podcast.
Yeah,
Thank you to
no,
our
well,
listeners.
I'm
Go
happy
ahead.
whenever, even if you just, if you don't have someone signed up for 1 week, and you're like, who can I get Laura, or just send me a message going, hey, would you be interested? Because unless something's coming up, I'll be like, yeah, I'll sit up until midnight. That's not a problem.
Well, awesome.
So
We've
half
got
the
a
time I'm not
filler,
reading
Laura.
anyway.
We've got a filler.
Yeah, put me on, Ma. Put me in. I
I can do it. Put me up to bat. I got this.
can do
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed you. Like I said, I think we should have some more content to go. I think that would be a lot of fun. Again, thank you to our listeners. Guys, this is going to be a long one, but I surely hope you enjoyed it. I know we trailed off on subjects, but I promise we'll get it a little more organized. We'll get MF Moody back on, and we'll do some more chatting. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great evening. Till next time. Bye-bye. Till then.